questions to the Prime Minister. Callum Mahmood.
One, please, sir.
Mr. Speaker, before listing my engagements, I'm sure the whole House will wish to join me in sending our profound condolences to the family and friends of the two servicemen killed in Afghanistan yesterday. They will remain always in our thoughts, and we owe them a deep debt of gratitude for the sacrifice. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings and discussions with ministerial colleagues, including the House will want to know, to bring forward next week immediate legislation to enable the courts to grant anonymity to witnesses for cases such as those involving organised crime and witness intimidation, and I hope and believe we can do this with all party support. In addition to my duties here in this House, I shall have further such meetings with ministers later today.
David Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I join the Prime Minister in paying tribute to the two soldiers from the Parachute Regiment who were killed in Afghanistan yesterday? They're doing an incredibly difficult job in incredibly tough circumstances, and they have our full support. Let me ask some further questions, if I may, about Zimbabwe, because I believe, as I believe the Prime Minister does, there is a real opportunity for Britain to take the initiative. There's universal anger at the stolen election, universal support for the Leader of the Opposition pulling out of the race, condemnation from the UN Security Council, and, for a change, strong words from Zimbabwe's neighbours. Can I ask the Prime Minister about three specific actions? First, for the forthcoming G8, which President Mbeki will attend, will the Prime Minister push for a declaration that all states present will cease to prop up the regime and will refuse to recognise its legitimacy?
Well, I think you'll have noticed that the United Nations passed a very strong presidential statement on Monday. South Africa was very much part of that statement. It made it clear that the elections could not take place under present circumstances, and it called for an end to violence. I, of course, will raise this matter in every international forum. I raised it in the European Union at the Council last Thursday and Friday, and there was a very strong statement from the European Union. I have talked to other members of the G8, including President Bush, about the situation. I believe that the hope that exists for a peaceful outcome of the problems that we are now facing lies in the fact that, as he has indicated, so many African leaders, the governments of Zambia, Botswana, Tanzania, Angola, Senegal, Kenya, and the South African National Congress have made it absolutely clear that they cannot support the current regime, and they want the full civil and political rights of the Zimbabwean people restored. Now, I want us to work with the African Union and the United Nations. I believe it would be best if a joint delegation went to Zimbabwe. What we want to achieve is a peaceful transition, promise of support for a new regime, and an end to the violence that has caused so many deaths.
I'd like to add my own expressions of sympathy and condolence to the family and friends of the two soldiers who tragically lost their lives in Afghanistan yesterday. Mr. Speaker, before he became Prime Minister, I think some people thought he was a man of principle. But over the past 12 months, time and time again, we have seen him abandon what he knows to be right for what he thinks is expedient. Now, this afternoon, he's got the chance to do the right thing when veterans from the Gurkhas march on number 10 to hand in their medals in protest at the way they've been treated by this government. I've asked him 4 times to receive these medals, and every time he has refused. Will he now have the grace today to receive them, or will he turn them away yet again?
Mr. Speaker, I do thank him for raising the question of the Gurkhas, because it allows us to explain what has actually been done. Now, we respect the fact that Gurkhas have fought for the United Kingdom for 2 centuries. They've served in conflicts throughout the world. We greatly value the contribution that they make, both past and present, and we know that they are operating in Iraq and continue to serve with great distinction in Afghanistan. And the government has improved the way that we are treating the Gurkhas. Serving Gurkhas and some recently retired Gurkhas for the first time have membership of the Armed Forces Pension Scheme. They have a genuinely improved deal for them, and 2,232 retired Gurkhas who were serving on the 1st of July 1997 or later have also been offered these arrangements. Now, there are other things that we are doing, and that includes equality of take-home pay with the British Army, the creation of national insurance records, changing the immigration rules to help retired Gurkhas, married accompanying service after 3 years in the brigade, opportunity to transfer to one of the 2 armed forces pension schemes. All these things we have done. He cannot say we have been active. We are trying to honour our obligations to people who have served the country well.
Speaker, once again, we have a long list list from the Prime Minister which misses the important issue. On Friday it's Veterans' Day, a day when we celebrate the courage of those who risk their lives for our country. The Prime Minister says he values courage above all else. So why won't he do the real thing that would help some of the most courageous veterans of all? Outside, right now, there are veterans of the Gurkhas protesting who have to rely on charity, who face deportation because his government won't grant them British citizenship. When will he act to correct this gross injustice and give those brave veterans the recognition and citizenship they deserve?
Mr. Speaker, I've just told him that the immigration rules were changed in 2004 to include post-1997 retired Gurkhas. The opportunity is now there to transfer to the wider army after 5 years. There are increased opportunities for them after leaving the army. There are opportunities to obtain settlement and naturalisation, that is citizenship, while serving in the wider army. And we are given the pensions that I've just identified to him. He cannot say we have done nothing to help the Gurkhas. We have showed how we value the Gurkhas in this country.
Speaker, Britain is currently facing a wave of potential strikes, threatened, among others, by housing benefit staff, social workers, teaching assistants and refuse collectors. With this in mind, will the Prime Minister rule out categorically any further changes that would weaken in any way the trade union laws introduced by past Conservative governments?
Mr. Speaker, we have no plans to change employment laws further, but let me say to him, it would be better if he would support us when we are trying to negotiate 3-year pay deals with the public sector. We have negotiated them for teachers and for nurses and for health service workers and for civil servants, and they are now in the Department of Work and Pensions and in the Inland Revenue. So 2 million people are covered by public sector pay deals. Now, the Shadow Chancellor said on Newsnight last week, "I'm not against opening negotiated pay deals." And then a few hours later he had to clarify the statement, saying, I am against reopening public sector pay deals. Now perhaps he can tell us what is the position of the Conservative Party supporting stability in the economy.
The whole House will have heard the Prime Minister. The whole House will have heard the Prime Minister saying he has no plans to change trade union laws. This is the same Chancellor who said he had no plans to introduce taxes and then introduce the extra taxes. If he genuinely has no plans, if he genuinely has no plans to introduce new trade union laws, can he explain why he's going ahead with the Warwick II process, where trade unions and government ministers will sit down and discuss policies, including the laws governing industrial action?
Of course we're going to discuss policies with every section of the community. That is surely what politics is about. I thought he was quite anxious to talk to the TUC as well. But I come back to this point. Is the Conservative Party supporting our 3-year public sector pay deals? They are unique. They're a barrier against inflation. They give us stability for the future. They are a signal to the rest of the public sector and to the private sector. Now, the Conservatives, just as on the 22 million people benefiting from a low tax rate, with the personal allowances coming down, are silent. They are silent on this. They should tell us whether they support economic stability, low inflation and low interest rates, which is what this will help achieve.
Do you know what? If you want to ask us questions, you've had a year in office, why not call an election? You said you needed more time to set out your vision. I think we've had a year. Why not bring on the election? Is the Prime Minister really telling us that his ministers are going to sit down with the people who provide 92% of the governing party's income and there'll be no mention of trade union laws? Isn't it the case that trade union leaders look at this Prime Minister and just see weakness? Tony Blair, remember him? Tony Blair said, "I have not created New Labour to see a Labour government give away power to the unions. You cannot go back," he said, "to the situation where 90% of the funding is provided by the trade unions." Isn't that exactly what's happened? We've got a bankrupt Labour Party, it's in hock to the unions, and we've got a wave of strikes threatened. As he lurches to the left, shouldn't we all conclude that New Labour is dead and buried?